Hi, this is Zach Erlacher. I'm here with Bruce Eckel in Santa Cruz, California. Bruce, I understand you've been in town for a couple of conferences. What's going on these days?
Yes, I was here for the Adobe Max conference and QCon, where I organized open spaces for them.
So what's going on at Adobe, the Adobe conference with Flex?
Oh, more and better stuff. I was mostly just kind of walking around talking to people, so I wasn't really going to the sessions per se.
Okay, and how about QCon?
QCon, I learned a lot of stuff. In fact, I just wrote a blog about the things that I learned. Eric Evans was there, and he was talking about coping with the difficult legacy architectures and bad programmers. And I learned about doing, let's see, what were those things called? Very quick consensus among groups. And there was a name for it. It was kind of like I don't know, lightning designs, I think it was what it was called, and a number of other things.
So how much of the conference was focused on architecture versus, say, peopleware?
It was probably half and half. Yeah, there was a lot of peopleware stuff.
And what are you doing in the open source area these days?
I am writing an open source book on Python 3 patterns, recipes, and idioms. And so that's kind of a new, I don't actually know if anybody's ever done an open source book before. I mean, there's been open source documentation, but the idea of this is that it's a book more like, the other books that I've published.
So what's cool and interesting in Python 3?
Well, probably the coolest thing is that it's a refactoring of the language. So they've gone through and they found all the things that have accumulated that has annoyed people over time, and they said, okay, instead of being like Java where we just accumulate feature after feature that stacking them on top of each other precariously, we will go through and we will take out features that are problematic and either replace them with better features or just leave them out. And so it's actually backwards incompatible in many ways. There's a converter, but the idea is that the language is being improved so that it doesn't eventually collapse under its own cruft.
It seems like PHP had kind of taken over as the web language for a lot of people, maybe more popular than Python. Do you think Python 3 is going to have a bigger following now?
Well, it kind of depends on what you're doing. I mean, I think PHP is still a very practical language for, depending on what you're doing. For building basic web applications, I think PHP is still pretty practical, although PHP, whatever it is, 5, is that where they basically added everything from every other language. I don't really know how practical that is, partly because I'm not really sure how many programmers in the PHP world actually want to use that kind of stuff. I mean, I think most people are just doing, I have PHP on my site, but basically I'm just doing it to do includes and a few other little things, and then as soon as I get anything complicated, I use Python. I think where Python's strength is in actual more formal web frameworks designed for building larger, more complex sites, like Django is a good example, and that's gaining a lot of traction. Or the one that I have studied more is TurboGears, which is a little bit more for flexibility in creating sites and scalability. Okay. So I think that's whereas if you just want to do some basic stuff, I think PHP is, well, like I say, I use it.
Okay. And you've been a language guru for a long time in C++. That's probably where a lot of people first saw you writing. Then in Java, you've had probably one of the most successful books in that area. Is this just a natural evolution between these languages, or is there some different trend happening these days?
Well, I think it is a natural a natural evolution. For example, before Java came along, nobody took garbage collection seriously, and now we don't even think about it. It's not even an issue. But that was a big hurdle from going from C++ to Java. It's like, well, can garbage collectors ever be practical? And nobody really cares anymore. And certainly Ruby and Python are both garbage collected languages. And now we're building languages on top of the JVM like Scala. And so I do think we have a kind of slow but natural evolution where we get everybody to a certain point, and then we kind of drag some of the people who've gotten tired of struggling with some things, we drag them into a new paradigm.
Would you ever go back to C++?
Yes, but only for small pieces of a project. Python has something called C-types, which allows a seamless and very fast interaction with DLLs. And so if you have a part of a Python project which is your bottleneck, probably the most sensible thing to write it in is C++, except now that we'll have a new version of Jython released probably at the beginning of the year. If you're working on the JVM and efficiency is an issue, the Jython implementation on the JVM is very fast, and so you might want to be calling Java libraries.
Excellent. And if people want to find out more about your book on Flex or what you're up to, where should they go?
Well, you can just Google me and you'll find it, or you can go to bruceeckel.com or mindview.net, but if you forget any of those, if you Google me, you'll end up on my site.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bruce.